Yes, people. Video here at the office. The time is 3:44 a.m. Um, I was actually struggling to think of a video until I actually realised we haven't really covered any sort of geopolitics on the channel yet, and I think that would be a good topic of discussion considering this weekend's events. So, don't know how long this is going to be. Could be a ramble. Who knows? Let's go. Let's go. I'm pretty excited for this one. So, weekend events. What do we know? So, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, was captured and flown over to the US. Now, 2 points that are pretty key to mention. Nicolas Maduro has been the president for a number of years now. Was the successor of Hugo Chavez, who was a very what would be the right word to put it? Significant political figure within Venezuela. Sort of came in to sort of try and reform the country after uh, its previous presidents. And Venezuela has been in an incredibly difficult economic situation for a number of years due to sanctions, corruption, money mismanagement, a number of things that normally happen in these underdeveloped countries. But what do we also know? We know that Nicolas Maduro has very strong ties to Tren Agua, which is a narco terrorist group designated by the US. What do we also know? I'm just stating facts here. Nicolas Maduro has been well known for rigging elections. He is um, someone who has used corruption to favor his friends, his family, um, and a lot of high established political figures in Venezuela. Now, since he's been rigging the elections, many countries around the world, including the UK, the US, Europe, the European Union, have basically said that he's not the legitimate leader of Venezuela because he's been rigging the elections. Pardon me. Now, I think it's pretty key to mention that the US has broken international law by capturing and then extraditing Nicolas Maduro, regardless of his drug trafficking crimes in the US. Again, key things to note here. Trendaragua was recently designated as a narco terrorist organization, which allowed the US to deploy warships to the Caribbean. And if you know anything about US and warships, they have some pretty big, scary fleet of ships, and they basically I think, docked, put, just gonna call it parked, uh, majority of their fleet off the coast of Venezuela and in the Caribbean around Cuba. It's actually not too far from Florida. I think it's about, I want to say, it's less than like 300 miles. It's really not very far. It looks far, but it's actually not very far at all. Now, what and why? That's, I think, the key questions to ask here. What is Venezuela and why Venezuela? Well, Venezuela is one of the if not the most key strategic players in Latin America. Now, why Latin America? Why the US? Well, the US have, well, CIA specifically, have been throwing regimes, coups in Latin America since the 1900s. 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s, whatever. They've had their hand in pretty much every major coup in Latin America. Now, this is just one of them, although this wasn't a coup, this was different. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves, proven oil reserves in the world. They also have the largest gold reserves in the entire world. They don't have the largest gold holdings, but they have the largest gold reserves. Now, those are probably the two most key strategic assets that a government can control in this current economic climate. Gold, obviously pure money, isn't it? So it's, it gives some kind of financial backing. Um, and it's very good for trade related things such as being able to store large amounts of gold in Fort Knox. They can, for instance, if they took control of gold reserves, if they had more gold in Fort Knox in the reserves, they can basically just print more money and no one really gives a shit. In essence, that's what would probably happen. Now, Venezuela's oil reserves are huge, biggest in the world, right? But their production is poor. Like it's very, very poor. I think three states in the US produce more oil than the whole of Venezuela, which is obviously crazy. Um, but again, production comes down to a few things that I mentioned earlier. So corruption, money mismanagement, and sanctions. Now, sanctions that the US placed on Venezuela were pretty tough and arguably caused a lot of the economic downfall of the country, although the problems were already there to begin with. Currency collapse was a big one. Their currency is worth fuck all now, and the US dollars is more prevalent over there. And again, market rate compared to going rate in that country for I think it's pesos. I'm going to assume it's pesos. Um, is completely off scale. Same as Argentina. Like you can go to like a sort of an underground cash dealer and they'll give you the actual what like everyone thinks the going rate is compared to what the government says the rate is. Um, and so, yeah, money mismanagement through the use of corruption was a large part of why Venezuela's oil production has suffered in the last couple decades. It used to be a massive hub for international trade through oil, and I think it made up about 90 to 95% of their economy in the last couple decades. That has significantly fallen off since oil production companies have gone out of the region. And basically, what happened was Hugo Chavez nationalized oil production within the country, and it all just fell to shit. Sanctions, etc., led to less foreign investment, and less foreign investment led to just old infrastructure and not renewing the infrastructure to keep up with production and efficiency. So production's just in the shitter. It's in the shitter. Largest oil reserves, production's in the shitter. So if you actually compare it in terms of ratio in terms of reserves to production levels, they're very bad. And you look at Saudi Arabia, Iran, etc. The miles away from those kind of places. Russia, or even the US. Now, I think what will probably most likely happen is Nicolas Maduro will be charged with numerous crimes, but the main one will be drug trafficking. He has very strong family ties to Trendo Agua. It's obviously not fully confirmed, but large parts of his family members taking bribes, working for Trendo Agua, big big organization, of course, but like high up in the organization, not just little tiddlers in the pond. We're talking like major players here, and I do believe that Nicolas Maduro has and is a large part of that organization in terms of distributing and being like a key figure within the organization. Now, obviously, you have the cartel bosses, but like he's like separate to that because he's like a political figure compared to like a criminal figure. Now, what is really interesting is the fact that no one did anything about it. So you've had lots of Chinese investment coming into the country in the last decade, since everyone's pretty much fucked off from Venezuela. Obviously, China go bang bang bang, invest. Um, Russia, very strong ties. They have a strong military alliance, and North Korea obviously have very strong alliances. They all have a sort of what's called the shadow fleet. So since Ukraine Russia began, sanctions hitting Russia were very bad. Obviously, Russia a big exporter of oil, big importer as well. Same with China. So there's a shadow fleet, which basically means there's a fleet of ships that turn their transponders off. Transponders is like the maritime GPS, as you would. Um, and they turn it off and they basically transport oil from one ship to another and sail them across the ocean to these countries that have large sanctions placed on them so that they can get oil at a better price or energy at a better price. Now, I don't know if people were watching that knew, but last couple of weeks or so, around Christmassy time, uh, the US basically put a blockade in, and before that, they closed off the airspace. So I think it was pretty abundantly clear that some kind of military intervention was due there. It's quite interesting to see actually. There's a poly market trader, which is prediction markets, who turned 30K into like 400K over the new year by betting on the fact that they would capture Maduro within like the first couple of weeks of 2026. Obviously, big call in there. Obviously, he's right. Made a lot of money from it, but it is definitely key to mention that the economic crisis isn't going to be fixed just by Nicolas Maduro uh, not being in power. Basically, it just leaves a power vacuum. That's all it does. It leaves a power vacuum. It leaves a power vacuum for key criminal organization figures. It leaves power vacuums for military leaders. It leaves a power vacuum for guerrilla leaders. It leaves a power vacuum for actual like genuine political leaders. I thought what was quite interesting is the Nobel Peace Prize winner who has fled to think it's I think it's Iceland or It is Scandinavia. We'll say Scandinavia. Fled to Scandinavia, and I think she kind of thought that she was in for a run in for president after Nicolas Maduro got out. But Trump basically said that she isn't rated, like she isn't rated, and so she'll be useless. And so what they said was that the U.S. government will basically not run the country day to day, but run the overseeing of the country up until a certain point. I haven't read the fine print of it, but on a generalized basis, that they'll run the country. And what I think they'll do is establish key control over oil and gold production, because that'll be very good for the US, not very good for Russia, not very good for China, and not very good for North Korea either, or Iran. It all has rippling effects across the global economy. That's another interesting topic, but I think I think what is also key to mention here is that the entire reserves of Venezuela, I think, is about 17 trillion US dollars, which is more than the GDPs combined of all countries except China and the US, respectively. And so, if they gain control, this is just oil, by the way, not gold. If the US can gain control of production and basically oversee it, it will massively aid them in AI infrastructure and all sorts and levels of their economy, and it's massively interesting. It is seriously massively interesting. It has so many repercussions that you just wouldn't see like anywhere. And I think one of the big repercussions is it sort of leaves the door open for other countries to basically do what they want. So, what I mean by that would be China and Taiwan. That would be an interesting situation to see play out, because obviously US have broken international law, so it kind of opens the door for countries to basically say the US have done this, so we can do it too, kind of thing. And obviously China's escalation in Taiwan over the last week with drills, um, running all sorts of military drills around Taiwan. I think they did it almost like a blockade drill. They fired missiles. They flew jets over. Lots of different things, escalating sort of tensions. Whether China will actually invade is, seen to be believed. I don't think they will. Within the next weeks, but it could be something that happens in the next couple of years for sure. But again, very interesting. Taiwan is a very interesting case study in terms of its use on the global economy and its supply chain dynamics. And I think just the US intervention in general across the globe is a very, very interesting topic to talk about. You can talk about the 7 countries that they've bombed in 2025. You have Yemen, Iraq, Somalia, Nigeria, uh, Venezuela. Can't remember the other two. It's too early in the morning for this. Um, I just think it's massively interesting. It's a good topic to come out here and talk about. And if you guys would like more videos like this, sort of just waffling about geopolitics, I enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hope it's informative. Hope it brings some value, maybe a bit more clarity as to what's sort of going on, because I can understand that a lot of people, sort of my age and above, really consume media, but they don't consume media that really gives clarity. There's lots of sort of things up in the air and all of this and all of that. And I think me coming on here and just sort of stating facts and speaking truth, and then sort of bit of speculation here and there, 'cause who doesn't have a bit of speculation, uh, is good. I think it is good, and it is important to talk about these topics, even if you think it doesn't affect you, because it does. You just don't see it. That's how it affects you. What else? I think we might have. I think we've covered everything on the Venezuela side of things. I think that the US overseeing oil production would be huge for them. The US overseeing gold production would be huge for them, and I think it was more of just a strategic, uh, military intervention in terms of national security and economic security for the US. Obviously, as we know, China, the US having big races at the minute. They're up against each other, and then you have the whole Russia and Ukraine situation. Then you have the China and Taiwan situation. You have the Japanese piping up in there about Taiwan and sovereignty and all of this bollocks. Um, but I think the key thing to remember is really just to remain tactical in terms of where you get your news from, and don't just take what you see to be true. Actually, is this the only source I've read? Yes. Okay, I should probably read some more sources and see if this is what everyone's saying. How can I fact check this? Just a bit more critical thinking, guys, because I think there is a huge lack of critical thinking in our generation nowadays, and everyone just sort of takes what they see to be literal and true, when oftentimes it's not true, but it's misrepresenting the facts, and then therefore you're misinformed. There's a lot of misinformation going on nowadays. It's kind of a negative about social media. So yeah, I generally try to stay off social media for news, because it's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise going on, and it doesn't really bring me any clarity. It normally just makes me a bit like fuzzy in terms of what I believe and what I know to be true, etc. But yeah, I would also like to cover one last little thing before we wrap up the video, and that is that I think a lot of people seem to think that these events that happen around the globe don't affect them. Like, they just don't care. The cost of ignorance, basically. They don't care because they don't think that what's happening in some faraway land doesn't affect them, but it most certainly does. It's just not immediately direct and immediately obvious to their situation and to their life. And so I think it's of the utmost importance that you actually stay knowledgeable on these topics and you learn about them, because it's vitally important. Like, I think it's vitally important that you know what's happening around the world, because otherwise you're just living in like your own small little bubble, and you're being very close-minded with your thinking, because it doesn't allow you to think and step into other people's shoes if you don't actually know what's going on. So, for example, like, it's not easy, but like you can kind of like sort of understand what it's like to be a child in Gaza, i.e., like I've never lived in that kind of situation, but from everything I've seen, everything I've read, everything I know to be true, I can just imagine that it is just like a horrible situation of pure oppression, and genocidal intent from the Israelis and arguably the US. But you think it doesn't affect you? It most certainly does. It affects you in more ways than one. Happy to break this down on another video, but yeah, I'm kind of aiming for like 20-minute videos on here. I feel like 10 minutes isn't really enough, and half an hour is too long, and 20 minutes is like a nice 15 to 20 minutes is a nice little sub sort of time in there. Um, start like fresh week of the new year. Like this is like the true week start of the new year. Um, I hope everyone has started the new year successfully, has set some goals, and is going after them. If you would like to watch a video on goals, I have a video posted up on my page. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to check out my other videos. There's more coming with stuff like this. I just quite like this video, so I might do some more geopolitics stuff. Just requires me to sort of read up and sort of make notes a bit more. This video wasn't very structured. I kind of just wanted to make a video, and I thought that we hadn't covered geopolitics really. So I apologise if it's a little bit everywhere and I'm darting from point to point to point. That's just because it's all up here and I haven't written anything down, which I probably should have done, but it's what it is. I quite like just talking to the camera like this. Again, apologies for the quality as well. This is on my laptop. I don't really care, but like I'm saying sorry anyway because like, I could improve it, but it's not that much of an urgent thing. Rather, like just provide value in terms of information instead of value in terms of content quality. I value the value rather than the quality of the production because I don't think it's all about the production. It's more about the value. If I was watching these videos, that's what it'd be about anyway. So yeah, uh, it's 4:06. Got the rest of the day to get some shit done. Hope you guys get your shit done. And yeah, man. Everyone have a good 2026 or a good first quarter of 2026. And yeah, gosh.